In today's video, I'd like to discuss throne height. And throne is, if not the most important, one of the most important aspects of your overall setup because you have to be comfortable. And one thing I'd like to start with is just if you see where my throne is set up, you're going to take notice that there's a little bit of a slope as my leg goes down. If I were to be sitting lower, then my leg would be more up like this with this type of angle. And you want to set yourself up in such a way that I like to think of it almost like riding a bike. Okay, when you're on top of a bicycle and you're riding, your legs are kind of able to move freely. You don't feel like you're pulling your legs up into your chest. Same thing here. So whether you're playing just a hi-hat and bass drum, double bass, what have you, you want to feel like when you're playing that you're actually a little bit more on top of the drum set. Just my perspective. So notice the angle I have over here, a little bit of a slope coming down, and also where do I want to position my snare drum in relationship to my throne height. If you notice right here, if I just put my snare drum stick out, I'm at a height where my snare can stay pretty parallel, okay? I'm not having to play up to the snare or going down too much to the snare drum. So what tends to happen if your throne is too low? Like I said before, you find yourself, whenever you play, you're going to put a lot of pressure on these hip flexor muscles up here because you're having to pull your leg up this way. Whereas if you can kind of come down on top of it a little bit more, it makes it much easier to play. The other thing is, a lot of times when drummers first start to utilize hi-hat lifts, where you're playing when you're lifting both pedals like that, what it kind of does is it creates a little bit of an imbalance within your core and with your hip flexors. And what a lot of drummers tend to do is they tend to do like the lean. We call this the lean, where when you play a lift, because you're lifting your left leg, they'll go like that because you're having to lift. Therefore, there's a lot of tension and pressure on here. What I like to suggest is that when you're playing, you're a little bit more up on top of the drums, and you're balancing mainly from your core. So remember, you're going to keep your shoulders nice and upright, not stiff, but just nice and upright. And then when you're playing, you might even want to practice just going back and forth with the pedals. And notice I'm not having to do this at all, okay? And I'm also not uncomfortable pulling my leg in toward me. So you want to be able to think like a bicycle. If I'm going back and forth, I'm able to do that with ease because I'm balanced in through here. So your throne height, having a nice little bit of a slope over here, not sitting too low, also not sitting too high, but just having a nice placement right here. When you're playing your pedals, not leaning back at all and not putting your knees into your chest. It makes a huge, huge difference. So in addition to having a great ergonomic setup, check your throne height, make sure you're sitting at a good spot so it's easy to play.